Melissa Mountain here for Truth Stream Media, and more reports are coming out about this Navy Yard shooter that make it seem completely staged. I wrote this story, actually, it was up yesterday. Report: was Navy Yard shooter gang stalked with mind control microwave weapons? And the reason I wrote that is because on August 7th, Aaron Alexis, the suspected shooter in the Navy Yard shootings, had called Rhode Island police claiming that he was being stalked by three people, that he was hearing their voices come through the floor, ceiling, and walls of his hotel room, and that it had caused him to change hotels 3 times to get away from them, and they were hitting him with microwave weapons. This was his claim, and the officer in the report obviously thought he was showing signs of mental deficiency, so he obviously didn't think he was telling the truth. Well, now it's come out, and I wrote this story up at True Stream Media today. My ELF weapon. More proof Navy Yard shooter targeted with mind control weapons. Reports are coming out now that he had actually carved my ELF weapon, my ELF weapon, and better off this way, into the stock of his shotgun prior to the Navy Yard shootings. And this is bombshell because what does ELF stand for? It stands for extremely low frequency waves, the kind of frequency waves that are used in these kind of mind control microwave weapons that our government has been researching and perfecting since the Cold War. And it's interesting because stuff that normally the mainstream media would not talk about at all, as far as directed energy weapons, Manchurian candidates, or even the fact that ELF weapons have been used in government research programs to modify and control the weather, that stuff is now mainstream. They're talking about it in the Washington Post, and they're talking about it in the Washington Times. And so this is bombshell, but now a new fact has come out that's even crazier. Apparently, the SWAT team at the Navy Yard, the team that is trained specifically for active shooter situations, was told to stand down. This is coming out of the BBC. And what it says, I'm going to run through these facts for you really quick. A tactical response team of the Capitol Police, a force that guards the U.S. Capitol complex, was told to leave the scene by a supervisor instead of aiding municipal officers. And they're saying here, I don't think it's a stretch to say that lives may have been saved if we were allowed to intervene. Now, it goes through the facts about how Aaron Alexis reportedly showed up at 8:15 local time to Building 197, which headquarters the Naval Sea Systems Command, and that he was armed with a shotgun and a pistol that he took from a guard. He had shot, he was spraying bullets, he was firing on people. Now, it says here that multiple sources in the Capitol Police Department have told the BBC that its highly trained and heavily armed 4-man containment and emergency response team was near the Navy Yard when the initial report of the active shooter came in at 8:20. So the report came in 5 minutes after Aaron Alexis reportedly showed up, and they were near the scene at that time. Now, these officers were wearing full tactical gear and they were armed with HK-416 assault weapons, and they arrived outside of Building 187 just a few minutes later, is what they're saying here. Now it gets interesting. According to Capitol Police source, an officer with the Metropolitan Police Department, Washington, D.C.'s main municipal force, told the Capitol CERT officers that they were the only police on the site equipped with long guns and requested their help in stopping the gunman. This is what these guys train for. And now it's saying that when the Capitol Police team radioed their supervisors, they were told by a watch commander to leave the scene. And then the gunman, Aaron Alexis, was reportedly killed after 9. So almost an hour, 12 people are dead. And these people in this CERT team, that's what they train for. And they had these long-range HK-416 assault weapons. This is what they trained for. They were told to stand down. They were told to leave. And apparently this is coming from several Capitol Police sources who spoke to the BBC and asked to remain anonymous for fear of reprisal. So what is going on here? Now we've got all this information coming out that this guy was reporting just a little over a month earlier that he was being gang stalked, he was being targeted with microwave weapons, which we know that our government has been working on. I mean, there are declassified documents here from back in the 90s to prove it. There are all kinds of patents from the 80s and earlier to talk about these kinds of weapons. I mean, these are on record. This is not some kind of science fiction conspiracy theory. So they've got these weapons. He's saying that. Then you've got the fact that he carved my ELF weapon and better off this way into the stock of his shotgun. And it even says here in the Washington Times, this blew me away that they would say this, but openly they're saying here that Julian McKinney, a former director of the Electronic Surveillance Project at the now defunct Association of National Security Alumni in Silver Springs, who identifies herself as a U.S. Army intelligence veteran, talks about how these kinds of microwave weapons are used to make government assassins. And it says the long-term objectives of these harassment and experimentation campaigns, the kind of harassment that Alexis was reporting to the Rhode Island police just a month before this Navy Yard shooting, is to force the individual to commit an act of violence, whether suicide or murder, under conditions which can be plausibly denied by the government. It's this kind of MK Ultra project, the declassified CIA mind control project, that is just out now in the open apparently, but it's this kind of thing that they use to control these government assassins, and that's been known by people who do research, but that's not something the mainstream media normally talks about. And now you have him carving that in and better off this way. What was he better off? Was he better off just go ahead and do it? Just go ahead and do this horrible, unspeakable act we've been nagging you to do, keeping you up at night, using microwave weapons against you. I mean, that's the kind of thing. And then you've got this, where they're telling them to stand down. And this is obviously not the first time in a major mass killing event in this country they've been given orders to stand down that don't make sense. So this is going to blow up in their faces. This is amazing amount of information that's coming out, makes this entire thing look staged. And we will keep you updated, True Stream Media.